Well, just the other day I heard an old story again that I've heard before. And like any good story, you know, they kind of every so often make a cycle around again through emails or other ways. But even though I've heard it before, I didn't know where it came from. I didn't know the details of it. I didn't know what university it came from or the professor who was responsible for it. And the story goes like this. Well, it seems that the story is told about a professor by the name of James Bonk, who taught at Duke University for over 53 years. Bonk taught chemistry and math. And he seemed to be popular with most of his students. Many of them even referred to his chemistry class as Bonkistry. As the story goes, it seems that one day, just before the final exam, 4 of his students walked into his classroom and asked if they could take the test the next day, do a makeup test, because they just didn't have time to prepare for it. They claimed that they had been at the beach over the weekend and had planned to be back on a Sunday in order to prepare for the final exam. But when they got ready to return to school, they noticed they had a flat tire on their car. And they didn't have a spare. So they couldn't, since it was a Sunday, find a tire shop that was open to repair the tire. So they claimed they had to wait until Monday morning before they could get it fixed and return to school, since they could not, find a tire shop open on a Sunday. Of course, the truth was that they just decided to spend an extra day at the beach instead of going back to school and study for the test. Since they knew that they were not ready for the test, since they had been partying all weekend, which I'm sure included a little bit of alcohol, they asked Professor Bonk if he would allow them to do a makeup test the next day. Well, since these were some of his better students, Professor Bonk agreed to let them make up the test the next day, even though he found their story a little suspect. So the next day when they showed up for the final exam, he placed each student in a separate room and gave them their test. And it was only 2 pages. The first problem said it was worth 5 points, and it was something simple about free radicals, and they thought to themselves, this test is going to be a breeze. But when they turned to the second page, they thought they might be in a little bit of trouble. The second problem said it was worth 95 points, and it simply asked the question, which tire? Unfortunately, the 4 had not collaborated very well on this seemingly unimportant detail, and thus gave conflicting answers. Therefore, they all failed their final exam. After he retired, the college paper did an article about this incident, and they asked Professor Bonk about the accuracy of this story. He said that the incident had indeed taken place, although it had been a long time ago. And while he couldn't remember all the details, the basic facts of the story were true, even in spite of it being embellished and retold many times over. Although this story had been around for a number of years, though, most people today still get it. And that's because most of us have been driving for a number of years. We've all had to experience what a flat tire was about. But I wonder if that story will lose its punch in another 10 or 15 years. Why? Well, because tires have become so much more dependable than they once were, haven't they? In fact, many cars don't even have spare tires anymore. And even if they have one of those emergency spare tires, we call those things a donut, right? Even though they have one of those, a lot of cars come straight from the dealer now with run-flat tires on Just think about it. How long has it been since you have had to pull over to the side of the road, locate your jack, and actually change a tire? I would bet some people today who are in their mid to late 20s have never had to change a tire. In fact, some of them wouldn't even know how to go about doing it. Run flat tires are a great invention, especially for the folks who cannot or do not know how to change a tire. However, it's only a temporary solution. Run flat tires, you see, are only designed to drive for a short distance, and most warn you not to exceed 40 or 50 miles per hour. They're only designed to run flat for a short distance, just long enough for you to find some place to get it repaired. Now, all this talk about tires reminds me of something that one of my peers told me a few years ago. We were gathered at the same meeting together, and he had just gotten a new appointment that year. And so we were comparing notes, of course, and I asked him, well, how are things going? How are things going? And he said, well, it was a good church. It had a lot of good people in it. But he said, while the church had a lot of potential, recent arguments and disagreements and conflict in the congregation had taken a toll. And he said, it's like driving a car with a flat tire, a new car with a flat tire. You should be speeding down the highway towards your goals and accomplishing some great things together. But instead, all you can do is limp along down the shoulder. And even though everything else in the car is working just fine, you're never going to get things back up to speed and going well until you fix the problem. As I look around at a lot of the churches, in North Missouri, I think a run flat tire is a pretty good metaphor to use in describing a lot of our churches. So many congregations should be speeding down the road, accomplishing great things for Christ, but instead they are slowly moving forward, or even worse, just limping along down the shoulder. And the reason is that they are plagued with problems of internal strife and disagreements, too many strong opinions, too many people unwilling to change. And unless people begin to work together toward fixing the problems, we'll never get up to speed. And what is worse, if they keep denying that anything is really wrong and just keep running down the road on that flat tire, a catastrophic failure is sure to take place. The reason Paul is writing to the church in Corinth is because his congregation is having some real problems. This section of his letter in most Bibles is subtitled, Divisions in the Church. And the reason for all the problems is that there are too many people in the Corinth congregation that have decided that it's more important to identify with a particular leader than to work together for the good of the whole congregation. What's causing the flat tire is a tendency that we all have to only embrace the things that we like and side with the people who are like us and think the way we do. And Paul names the problem. The Corinth church is divided into different cliques or factions who've all rallied around their favorite leader. Paul writes, some of you are saying, well, I'm a follower of Paul, while others say, I follow Apollos or Peter. And some claim they alone are the true followers of Christ. And so in effect, Paul says, you have broken Christ into many pieces. It should be said that there is no indication that Paul or any of the other leaders are doing anything to create or encourage these factions to develop. We can see that Paul's reaction to what is going on is surprise. And not pleasant surprise. And Paul understood all too well that unless something was done to create a unity of purpose, it would gradually tear this congregation apart. The church was running on a flat, and they needed to get it fixed quickly before it forced them over to the shoulder and rendered them completely ineffective. Later on in his letter, Paul again is chastising the Corinthian church because of their lack of spiritual maturity. And he writes in chapter 3, I have been talking to you as though you were still just babies in the Christian life, who are not following the Lord, but your own desires. I cannot talk to you as I would to healthy Christians who are filled with the Spirit. And then he adds, I have had to feed you with milk and not with solid food because you couldn't digest anything stronger. And even now you still have to be fed on milk, for you are still only baby Christians, controlled by your own desires, not God's. For when one says, I belong to Paul, or I belong to Apollos, are you not merely human? Chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. You see, when Paul calls them merely human, he was not saying that they hadn't received Christ, but that even though they were people of faith, they were focusing on their own selfish desires instead of allowing themselves to be led by God's Spirit. So how can we as a congregation make sure that we don't fall into this trap that has afflicted so many other churches? What do we do? How do we guard against it? How do we keep from getting a spiritual flat tire? It slows us down and damages our witness and may force us to limp along the shoulder when we should be cruising down the road and doing some really good work for the community. In congregations experiencing internal strife, it's not uncommon to find a high percentage of spiritually immature Christians. Many times it has nothing to do with their chronological age. A common problem today is that many people only want a superficial involvement in their church. They all want the benefits of being part of the church without any of the responsibilities. They only want to attend once in a while. They don't participate in Sunday school classes or Bible studies or get involved in mission work. They only give to the church out of their leftovers. And so they don't grow in their faith. Some just get stuck in that infant stage that Paul talks about when it comes to their spiritual maturity. What also can cause big problems, severely damage a church's effectiveness, is when people start thinking of their church like a fraternity or a country club. When this takes place, many people in the congregation forget that the main reason the church exists. Far too much of the time, people evaluate their church's effectiveness only by the worship experience and how it makes them feel. People who have this country club mentality see the church like a country club. They attend only when it's convenient for them to do so. They pay their dues begrudgingly and believe the church's staff exists to take care of them and their families. But this is not the purpose of the church. This is not the reason that we exist. The real purpose of the church is stated very clearly in our conference's mission statement, if you've ever read it or heard it, and I'm sure you have. When we as a congregation ask, what is our purpose and why do we exist, they give us a very clear directive. We exist to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. That's the reason we exist. And a good indicator of spiritual maturity then is When we see people focusing on Christ and trying to please God instead of just trying to please themselves. As Christians, we are to be willing to give a witness to our faith. In verse 18 of today's lesson, Paul writes, "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God." We don't want to be like those 4 college students who are trying to shirk their responsibilities after a weekend of carousing. And the fact is, if those students had just collaborated a little bit better on their stories, they actually might have pulled it off and got away with their deception. But they're a good example of Ben Franklin's observation that we had better all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately. You see, as Americans, I believe, well, as American Christians, it's some really good advice. Because we are now living in a culture that is becoming increasingly antagonistic towards the Christian faith. And therefore, we need to put our personal preferences, our political and denominational differences aside so that we can work together more closely with all other Christians. So let's get out there on the open road. Work for the cause of Christ and do our best to avoid the things that can give us a spiritual flat tire. Render us ineffective as a church. Let's partner with other Christians and do the right things and do the things that will help us to have the greatest impact for Christ in this community. Let's pray. Loving God, we thank you for your word, which should unite us. For the one thing as Christians we all have in common is that you died for us. And we can all accept and agree on that one thing, and how important it is. Lord, help us to set our personal preferences aside and be willing to work with one another